Savannah, welcome aboard to the show. So happy to have you here today.
Thank you, Ari. I'm so excited to be here. Thank you for having me.
So you are probably one of the most interesting guests that we've had in regards to just the amount of things that you're doing. So I'm just going to jump right into this, and keep me honest here if I lie about anything.
Okay.
You are a firefighter, check.
Yes.
Okay. EMT, check.
hmm
Entrepreneur,
Yes.
check. And apparently a beauty queen as well.
Oh, thank you.
Well, it's not me, it's Miss America, Robertson County. So, uh, my first question is, what's the problem? Are you unable to sit down and not do anything? Just too much energy?
I don't think so, Ari. Honestly, it is hard for me sometimes to sit down and take a break because I do love all the different jobs that I get to do. And so, yeah, passion's a big drive for me, and I have to like make an effort to take a break sometimes.
What brought you to basically becoming a firefighter, and what was the process? What did it look like?
Sure. So I got involved actually in volunteer fire first 3.5 years ago. You can see from my background, I've been involved, long before that in pageants, in business, and that has been my background and my pageant or passion for a long time. So I never thought that I would become involved in the fire service. And I know I don't look like a stereotypical firefighter, but it is something that I love. I actually was dating someone, Ari, 3.5 years ago, who was involved in the fire service. He was a firefighter, and on our second date, he responded to a volunteer call where I got to ride in his truck with him to an emergency, and he jumped out and helped. And I did not like waiting in the truck. I'm definitely not like a wait in the truck kind of
Your
girl.
instinct was, let's jump into the fire.
Yes, I wanted to help, and I, just hated watching him. I really wanted to help. Obviously, I was so proud of what he was doing, but I didn't know if I could do it. To be honest with you,
Mm.
I'm someone who's very of smaller frame. I had no background in emergency services, and so I didn't know if it was something I would be able to thrive in. So I just started out at my local volunteer department. In a role called being a support member,
Mm.
which is where you help the firefighters on scene. And I remember when I was volunteering and giving them water and Gatorade and helping them carry tools, little tasks like that, not actually fighting fire, that I felt super empowered because I
Mm.
could lift the same tools that they were lifting and watch them do so closely the amazing work they were doing. And I remember thinking, I am very fortunate that I own my business. My schedule's super open. Let me just go to the fire academy and see if I can do it.
Oh wow.
And I ended up graduating as like a top recruit in my fire
Oh
academy.
wow.
It was an awesome process. It
What
was
what is that? What does that look like? I mean, was it hard? Was it easy? I'm assuming it was hard. What did you have to? What was the place where you were like, oh my God, can I do this? If at all?
Sure. Honestly, Ari, it was like one of the biggest physical challenges is that I've ever undergone ever. Especially coming from no background in it and going diving straight into the fire academy. I mean, it was incredibly difficult. We had physical agility training. We had to do training. Of course, operating all the different equipment. We work with hoses that are very heavy. Water is super heavy, and so learning like techniques that worked for me throughout that process. I remember, Ari, the first day that we got issued our turnout gear, I
Mm.
put it on and I was shocked at how heavy it was. It was incredibly heavy. Everything on us is about 75 pounds, and
Wow.
I weigh 110 pounds.
Oh my
And
Lord.
so it is more than half, my body weight. And so it's definitely was intimidating at first. And it took a lot of training and physical training throughout the fire academy to get to like the peak physical condition where I felt confident in fire.
Wow. Was there any moment where you questioned if you could do this?
Oh, so many moments. I think we were all there. I think our whole class was there. I was one of only two women. And I think walking in the door in that environment, obviously coming from like the corporate world and being familiar with that, it brought a sense of confidence, but it was such a different element. I was so out of my
Mm.
element. And so being one of, just two girls there, that was a moment where I was like, wow, is this really a place where I can do well? And I questioned myself from the second I walked in the door because I didn't see really any example. It was a majority of larger men that didn't look like me, of course.
Right.
And so I was intimidated, but I'm very glad that I stuck it out and learned really quickly that, I could score incredibly high testing, that I could work hard outside of the academy to gain the skills that came more naturally to others and ended up graduating at top of my class.
That's amazing. What was the activity? What was the moment, if you can kind of describe it to us in detail, where you were like at your lowest point and was the biggest challenge for you?
Oh goodness. Okay, let me take this. You might find this silly, but it was big and very intimidating for me. Growing up, I wasn't very familiar with tools. For example, before the fire service, I had never touched a chainsaw.
Mm.
And so there were certain tools that obviously, people that grew up working with men, I know many women do work, with chainsaws and things like that growing up. I just was not one of them. And so I remember like feeling insecure and intimidated around tools that I'd never touched before. And I know that's not like a crazy physical challenge, but just this feeling of like, wow, everybody knows or almost everyone knows how to use this except for me. I don't even know how to start it. And that can be life or death, right? So thank God I was in a training environment where I could learn, and over time became more confident with it. But that was a time I remember going home so embarrassed that I didn't know how to start a chainsaw. And I actually called one of our instructors and I was like, can you please work with me, on this to make sure that I'm confident in how to start this. And he was able to help me. And so, yeah, I came back and I could start that thing. But for a moment, I was so embarrassed.
I don't find that silly at all. It's a dangerous tool, right? People have cut their legs and arms off.
Yes.
So yeah, I can totally see that. Quite honestly, I've never used a chainsaw in my life. So it's not, I also would find it scary. So I totally get it.
Thank you.
I wouldn't want my kids to start a chainsaw either, right? And there's an
Yes.
element to that. So rolling back, you wake up one morning and you're like, oh, I'm going to do this. But then you woke up one morning and decided you wanted to be an EMT. What's the story there?
Yes. Okay. So I'm very fortunate. My department, the Murray County Fire Department, I love being with my people there. I mean, they're absolutely incredible. They do a lot of training and classes, and so if you'd like, you can go through different courses
Mm.
and obtain medical licensure, which is awesome. And so they made it a class available called EMR, which is Emergency Medical Responder. And I had again no medical background, hopped in, took that class, and fell in love with it and really discovered a love for the medical side of fire service and EMS as well. And so yeah, I just thought this is something I could do. Let me try it. And I hopped in and then kept getting myself in deeper and deeper. So I ended up through the Miss America organization being awarded scholarships. College scholarships, and I had extra left over. And so I thought, let me go to EMT school through my local community college. And then, AEMT school, which is advanced EMT school. And so I just kept getting myself in deeper and falling in love with it more and more.
So if that wasn't enough, you started a business. Um, we usually don't go into the businesses, but this one I think is we kind of keep it non-salesy and marketing. But what's interesting, I love everything that has to do with children, and this one specifically is childcare. So I'd like to get into it. What was the point where you were, oh, I'm going to start a childcare business? What was the pain? What was the reason where this was even top of mind for you?
Sure. So actually, I moved to Tennessee from Florida when I was 17 with my family. And I lived in this big neighborhood that had many children in it. And I personally have just always loved children. I love working with children. And so I was babysitting a ton in my neighborhood and working with different families. And I remember I was booking myself so much that there were nights that parents would reach out to me and I was working for another family. I was unavailable. So I started referring the families to my friends that I knew were also great babysitters. And I realized that there may be a business opportunity for me to be able to supply families with girls that are really exceptional and incredible that were just my friends at the time. And so it started very small with literally a Facebook page so that parents could book a babysitter through me. I would vet the caregiver for the parents and then send them their way. And it's just grown over the past 7 years astronomically. Not something that I ever expected to do with my life. Same as the fire service, but it's just taken off. And now we serve, we booked over 50,000 babysitting jobs and placed countless nannies. So it's been so rewarding. And the fire service tie-in has also changed my perspective on so much of this because
Why?
oh my gosh. Well, I think that what I like our brand is so much about safety, right? And I
Mm,
found that we get calls every day, Ari, from families that have had terrible experiences with a
uh,
babysitter that they found online,
right,
or maybe their kids were in an unsafe situation because they may not realize the importance of vetting a babysitter before allowing them into their
right,
home.
right.
Yes. And so being able to found this company, Southern Sitters, and start developing safety into our vetting process and also seeing, so many safety situations from the fire side has been life changing.
I gotta tell you, it does scare me, and I'll tell you why. Until now, we have not, like, we have barely used sitters because of this exact description that you're going through. And in fact, only now my wife and I have the leisure to go on date nights because my son is old enough to watch his two younger siblings. So
Mhm.
this is a real thing. I mean, I wish that I could easily trust the person coming. In fact, one of the sitters that came over to our house, recommended by a friend, person we know, she almost used Clorox on our baby, and
Oh,
so that's chlorine wipes basically. And my friend saw it and she was like, ah! And that was the last time she came around, and she went through some kind of like course and training, and I'm like, yeah, that did not work. So I'm really curious. You were just doing your own thing, babysitting, no business, and then you're like, okay, I'll do this with friends, and you kind of trust your friends. They will not, like, break your trust.
of course.
And then you start working with people who are potentially strangers. How does that transition? What does that look like? And how, like, what were the problems?
Wow. First of all, I'm so sorry to hear that you went through that, and how I just want to affirm that you're right to be nervous. And anytime a
Absolutely.
family call, these are the most precious things in your entire world and your life that, it's something that I feel like is taken sometimes very lightly by caregivers. Not our caregivers. We look specifically for girls and team members that really understand the weight of childcare. But I hate to hear the stories like yours and so many families that come to us and have used somebody maybe off of Facebook or even through a friend, that it's just so difficult. So thank you for sharing that with me. And I agree with you 100%. But yeah, no, it was a scary transition because so much of what sometimes makes us feel comfortable and makes families feel comfortable is knowing someone in advance. So you think, okay, I know my friend Mason from church. I can recommend her. I know my friend here. I can recommend her to this family and feel good about that. But I remember hiring for the first time a caregiver that was outside of my little circle. I had posted that, hey, we need more team members. We have a lot of families looking. And I went to lunch with this person that was interested in joining our team because I wanted to get to know her personally. And that made me feel less afraid. And over the years, as we've tailored our vetting process to truly get to know who these people are, I feel, even though we have thousands of caregivers on our team, that our company values are so intertwined with getting to know them and their hearts, and our vetting process being so intense that if they make it through that and represent our values, we believe that they are the best of the best.
I appreciate that. It's not an easy thing, I mean, to do from an operational standpoint, to take a stranger to a point that you trust them, A, with, somebody's child, but B, representing your business, because if they make a big mistake, that's going to reflect on you, your brand, and of course be very dangerous to a potential parent. And that same time, oh my God, not only the Clorox wipes, but they're like, she put the baby, my daughter, back in, now she's 11, but anyway, she put her on the edge of the bed, like easily flip over, and it's just horrific, like the things that can happen. um I'm incredibly curious. You've been doing these activities for a while now. Is this it, or do you have something else? I mean, I feel like I know you now within these 5 minutes, 10 minutes that we've said, and I feel like you've got something else cooking coming soon. So what's coming soon that maybe you don't know about?
Oh my goodness, thank you for asking me. I honestly I don't know. And I hope it's okay to like talk about my faith here, but I feel like
Yeah,
so much of my life I am a Christian, and I believe that like God has put these things before me that I could have never imagined for myself. So I'm kind of just following, the path, that the doors that he opens, and new ones are opened all the time for us. For example, our company's expanded to 6 states, and we do open new locations all the time.
which states?
We are in Florida, Alabama, Tennessee, Texas, Georgia, and Kentucky. And so, yeah, it's been a huge blessing to watch it grow, especially starting in just one tiny little neighborhood as just a Facebook page. So,
Yeah.
yeah, I mean, I'm so excited for what's next. I feel like we're just continuing to work. Our team is awesome. So we have 8 ladies that work on our administrative team full time, and they all help in so many ways. So we're constantly looking for the next thing and trying to grow.
Wow. What were the big lessons that you learned, or maybe the pains that you felt on that journey of growth, kind of going from zero to thousands of bookings?
Sure. There's been a lot over the years, to be honest with you. And I feel like, as a young entrepreneur, I've been learning as it's grown.
Mm.
And I'm really grateful because I feel like a big thing I realized early on is that I could not do this by myself and I needed mentorship and people to help guide me that have more experience than me. So I'm very lucky. I speak to my parents often. My mom has been a huge light for me and has always come to me and allowed me to, ask her for advice. She has a background in entrepreneurship. She actually was also a teacher. And so providing a unique perspective of being in the school systems and working with children and, milestones and development and trainings our caregivers should have. She's always been a great resource. So I feel like that was something that I learned the hard way early on, that trying to do it alone is not the right way to do it, right? To seek help is always the best. So I really value that. And then I feel like I learn new things every day, honestly, as we've expanded. I feel like I've learned financial lessons around technology. So I'm constantly learning and I don't think I'll ever stop. I hope I never stop.
I appreciate that. It is very lonely to be an entrepreneur, especially when you're the founder or CEO. It can be very tough. So building a community around you can be incredibly important. I definitely appreciate that.
Yeah.
This is, believe it or not, this has been so much fun that we're almost at the end of our time. We have one more question that is a very difficult question, because it's personal. If you had to go back to 20-something-year-old Savannah, what would you advise her?
Oh gosh, that's a hard one, Ari. I said to be first of all, I'm 24, so I'm still there. I'm 24, and I feel again like I'm still learning and growing, and like I'm in this phase right now of discovering so many things and doing all the things. I feel like if I had to go back to my little self, I feel like at first these
I'm
past
sorry, how have you done all these things before age 24? You're making me feel bad. Like anybody listening will be like, I'm behind.
Oh, thank you. I appreciate that. I mean, I really has like doors have just opened for me and I'm so grateful to have had the skills to and like the discernment to walk through them. It's been so many blessings that have lined up for me. So thank you for saying that. But yeah, no, I feel like looking back at like my littler self, I am so grateful that I had people that believed in me. And I wish I encouraged myself to believe in myself even more. And like dive into these projects fully, not to have self doubt. Like going back to talking about walking into the fire station for the first time and being one of two women. If I had known at that moment that I was going to graduate at the top of my class and be in an officer role in my department and break these barriers and speak for these national conferences and be an example for so many others, I would have walked in with my chest up, Ari, and I would have been so confident walking in that room. So I feel like I wish I could go back to that moment and that girl and say, you need to walk in and you need to own this and walk into every room like that. And that hindsight has helped me moving forward, be more confident in new situations.
I've noticed, Savannah, that one of the things that you, and maybe it's conscious, maybe it's unconscious, but one of the things that you seem to live by is kind of leaning into opportunities and kind of letting that next door open on itself and jumping into it. Is this a conscious effort? Do you have some tricks and tips to do it? But it seems like your successes almost roll one into the other. Or is this strategic? Is it all planned up front? Like, what does this look like? How do you do it?
Sure, I think it's a little bit of both. And this is such a cool question because I feel like my motto for the past 2 years, and I've seen more explosive growth like in my life and my business, my career in the last 2 years than I've seen ever. And I feel like it's been for this reason. My motto has been say yes. And just ask. So those two things together, right? For example, I think we limit ourselves sometimes in what we can accomplish. Like we see an entrepreneur on TV and we're like, hey, we can't get there, or on a specific show. And an example of this is literally there's a local television show called WSMV Local On 2, and they feature entrepreneurs. And I've watched it for so many years and thought, oh, it'd be so cool if I could get on that show. How could I do it? I want to do it. Finally, living by this just ask motto, I sent the host a direct message on Instagram and was like, hey, I'm a local entrepreneur. I'd be so honored to be featured. I don't know if you'd ever consider me, but please, if you read this message, I'd love to have this opportunity. She messaged back the next day and was
Oh,
like, are
wow.
you available in 2 weeks for your show? I was like, yes. And so I feel like just ask is so important, and we need to ask more things of others, and to be able to progress and make people aware of our dreams and goals and move forward. So that's really changed my life.
I love that. I tell my kids always, you lose 100% of the opportunities you never apply to. So I think that's deeply, deeply important. And I appreciate you for sharing that for our audience. Savannah, thank you so much for coming on our show today. This has been so much fun. I feel like we should have you back in like 6 months to tell us what's happened since. I really appreciate you. Thank you so much.
Thank you so much, Ari. I appreciate you. I'll see you soon.